All right, your first day of notes is Unit 1, Linear Equations, and this is going to be day 1, solving linear equations. So you guys need to title the top of your notes with that. So the first thing we need to talk about is this unit is just dealing with linear equations. So over here on the left side, you see a list of 3 different types of linear equations. What makes them linear is the fact that none of them have any exponents, roots, or any other weird arithmetic or symbol like that. If you see over on the right side, there's 3 nonlinear examples. This is nonlinear because it has a root in it. This is nonlinear for 2 reasons. Because the variable is in the denominator and it has an exponent. And for the third one, this is nonlinear because your variable is actually an exponent. So remember, for everything to be linear, this means we're not dealing with any exponents or other funky symbols. These are just some quick reminders. Hopefully you guys know all of these things. If you need to pause to get the rest of this down, just do so. But for reminders of how to solve linear equations, when solving linear equations, we're always going to move what's furthest from the variable first. To move things from one side of the equal sign to the other, we're going to use the inverse operation. So if you're adding to the variable, you're going to subtract. If you're multiplying to the variable, you're going to divide. That's how you move it from one side of the equal sign to the other. If variables appear on both sides of the equal sign, you want to first move all variables to one side. You can pick which side you want to move them to, but you just have to make sure every x in that equation is on the same side of the equal sign. Don't forget to distribute and combine like terms, so that's what we call simplify. If it's easy to simplify the equation before moving anything, then do so. And then don't let fractions freak you out. Every year, my students stress about an equation with fractions in them. Remember, the denominator is just a division. So I'm always going to multiply by the denominator if I run into any fractions. So there's just some quick notes to add in the beginning of this lesson before any examples. And I ran out of room for denominator. All right, we're just going to do one example together for this problem. The first thing I'm going to notice is that my equal sign is right here. So what some of you might see is drawing the line down there. If you ever cross that line, that's where you have to use your inverse operations. What I notice first is that I can simplify either side. On this left side, I have parentheses, which means I'm going to distribute that 8 inside. So that's going to be 8y plus 56. On the other side, I notice that I have the variable written twice. Since I'm not crossing the equal sign, I'm just going to use the operations written. So I have 4y plus 2y, so that'll give me 6y minus 8. From here, I have variables on either side of the equal sign, so I'm going to move all of them to one side. I'm going to take this 6y, since it's smaller, and subtract it to the other side. Since I'm crossing the equal sign, I have to use my inverse operations. So 8y minus 6y is 2y. I bring down the 56. The positive 6y minus 6y, that just cancels. So I could either put a 0 there or just leave it blank. And then bring down that negative 8. So this is where I said when solving, this was the first thing I wrote in the reminders. When solving, you're going to get rid of what's around the variable, what's furthest from the variable first. Since this 2 is touching the y, and that 56 is kind of separate from it, this 56 is furthest. So I'm going to get rid of that first. So I'm going to take 2y equals negative 8 minus 56 is negative 64. And the last step to getting y by itself, since I'm multiplying by 2, I'm going to divide by 2 on either side. So my answer here is that y equals negative 32. The instructions for this example say solve using inverse operations, and it also says explain your steps. So whatever order you do this in, it doesn't matter. I went ahead and solved the entire thing first, and now I'm going to fill in my explanations for what each of my steps were. So this is step 1. This looks like step 2. This is step 3. And then step 4. So I need to have 4 explanations. The first thing I did was simplify both sides. The second thing is I needed to move all variables to the same side. The third thing we did was I subtracted the 56. And then the last thing I had to do was divide by 2. So in math, it's really important not only that you guys can do the steps, but also you can look at them and recognize what's happening. A lot of what I'm going to give you this year is problems that are already worked out or set up, and you're going to have to be able to pick out where everything came from. So that was the one example we did together. So now this is where you guys can do the try on your own. Remember, I want the try on your owns to go on the left side of the paper. So keep it in the same area as the example you just did, but keep it over on the left side. And any questions, comments, or concerns you come up with, either while working out this problem or you had during the notes, that also needs to be written on the left side, because those are going to be good questions for you to use when you study. And it's also going to be helpful so that when you come into class, you know exactly what questions you need to ask me or what I need to clarify.